about to listen to the Dr. Dahlia Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Dahlia Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Dahlia.
Welcome back, everybody. We are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show, 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So I don't understand why college football isn't like Super Bowl, where just everything stops and parties and food. And I love college football. I haven't been as up to date on it as I am with NFL, but I still like it, and I've been following the Canes and the Hoosiers. In fact, I put money on futures that they would make it to the final or they would win the national championship. I had money on them. I think Bama, Ole Miss. I didn't have it on the Ducks. And so luckily for yesterday's game, I got to kind of sit back and relax because I had futures on both teams. So no matter what happens, I won money. So I was pretty happy about that. Yeah, I would have won more if the Canes won, but I was a Hoosier fan, really excited for in fact, so, the Hoosiers 16-0, they say that the last time you had an undefeated college football team was Yale in 1894, although Notre Dame Bison, I think, team back in 2019 was also undefeated, but they had different paths. But anyway, what the Hoosiers did was historic. Well done, 27-21 score. And Fernando Mendoza, absolutely fantastic. When I see the quarterback try to score and, just throw his body into it, and his parents are so happy, and I guess his mom has MS. Beautiful lady. And when you see that story, that backstory, and it's a good team. But, Carson Beck, wow, I completely talented. But it came out a few days back when they asked if he had any tests on Friday, or I guess a reporter asked him if he had, he had to study. And he said, no class, no tests. Say what? He graduated 2 years ago. He graduated college 2 years ago. And here he is, a college football player. So now everybody's talking, going, whoa, wait a second. Now, he's a smart guy. Apparently his GPA was, I think, 3.8. Let me give credit where credit's due. The Mirror US, the Mirror is the source, says apparently he's wrapping up his sixth and final season of college eligibility. So I guess you could be eligible if you don't take college classes. And his last game was yesterday. And his GPA, from what we understand from a couple years ago, was 3.8. Even honors classes. So he's pretty academic. That's pretty impressive. But I guess when a reporter asked him about, school, he said, no class, I graduated 2 years ago. And so this clip is going all over the place, going, well, wait a second, college athletes, aren't they supposed to be college? So I'm mixed on this because I understand that if you are a college student, and because I'm looking at the college schedule, I'm looking at the basketball schedule. I watch a lot of college basketball. I don't know when these kids get to study. They're always traveling. There's always games. There's always practice. When I went to school, and I graduated in 4 years, but the reason why I was able to graduate in 4 years is, one, my AP classes in high school knocked off a whole semester, and then I took classes every summer. Plus, I took full loads. So I was able to graduate in 4 years. But, we're talking 5-6 classes plus summers. And then plus I was working part-time. I never slept. And so when you look at what these students do, you wonder what their academic schedule could be like, and how does anybody graduate school when they're in that league of athletics where they're always playing, they're always a starter. And so you wonder how the academic side works. But then you have other students where the academics are done. Now all I have to do is concentrate on the sport. But when I look at high school football, and I watch high school football too, because my kids went to Bishop Gorman, and Bishop Gorman football is amazing. But we also have Liberty. We have a lot of good football teams in Vegas, and I'm from Southern Nevada. So, but when you watch high school football, you want the kids to be in high school. I remember my son was playing football, and there were some people on the other team that had full-on beards. Drop testicles. They looked like they were 24-year-old men. And you're thinking to yourself, wait a second, are they really high school students? I mean, this guy looks like, he could be a father of an 8-year-old. What's going on here? So, when I'm watching college, you're expecting, okay, these are college kids. And these are college kids competing. Now you're watching Navy. All right, then they're in the Navy. So you're thinking they're representing their school, and this is what the school has to offer. But instead, sports has changed to where we need to make money. We need to make a lot of money. And so we need to hire the best talent. And we need to make sure that talent can do their job. And so college football, college basketball, very exciting. I love watching it. But is it really true college football, college basketball? I mean, when the wealthy schools can pay for wealthy athletes. Now, some athletes make nothing, absolutely nothing, which is a shame, because I think the whole team should benefit from taking away time from their studies and their life for our entertainment and our enjoyment. But some of these players are making millions in endorsements and all sorts of things. And so I don't know if there's going to eventually be some sort of a regulation of it. So, when you watch college football, it's always the same teams: Bama, Ole Miss, Georgia Tech. You always see Georgia Bulldogs. You always see kind of the same teams because they have the money. So they have the scouts, they have the recruiters, they have the ability to attract some of the best players. And some of these other colleges, they struggle. And I don't think that's fair because, I come from UNLV. UNLV, now you have some awesome people going to that school that try out for the team and do well. You think that's how it works. And then they play. Now some people are like, wow, look at UNLV and look what's going on there. That's not how it works. Just it's what can you buy? What can you trade? What can you get? And it's now such a business that I think that ruined it for a lot. Carson Beck, fantastic player. I think he did. I knew he was going to throw a pick at the end. Whenever you're under the gun and you only have seconds left to do a drive like that, like 90-yard drive, I knew that sadly it wouldn't end well for the Canes. He's a great player, but you kind of, I don't know. It's like, so they're not really college kids, So okay, I know it's college football, but that's what you want to see. You want to see college kids do their thing. 1-877 Doc Dolly, don't go away.
Have you ever thought you'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the past 40 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build huge cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Text FREE to 99799, and I'll send you my free training. I promise you I'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Text FREE to 99799 and let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's FREE to 99799. Again, FREE to 99799.
Hi, it's Mark Falter, host of the Financial Fitness Show. I strongly believe that no one should ever pay 1 penny more in taxes than they are legally obligated. Unfortunately, for most hardworking Americans, this just isn't the case. Why? Because most people spend more time planning next weekend's getaway than trying to ensure they're going to pay less in taxes. My financial fitness team has put together some materials that I know are going to help you. It's the Tax Savings Kit. Tax Savings Kit includes 3 things: free tax analysis, top 10 ways to pay less in taxes, and an investor's guide to taxes. Now, how do you get it? Simple. 866-764-2635. Again, 866-764-2635. I'm Mark Falter. This is Financial Fitness, making personal finance profitable.
We are back on the Dr. Dolly Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, 1-877-DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to y'all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X at Dr. Dahlia, Facebook, The Dr. Dahlia Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. So let's save you guys some money. So many of you are starting to prepare your taxes. I'm still waiting a month or two. I don't get all my 1099s and W-2s. You're supposed to get it at the end of the month, and I just never seem to get them on time. And I don't know. And by the time I get my act together. But many of you forget that you could save a lot of money if you had medical expenses. And depending on how much you spend on medical expenses, you could deduct a pretty penny. And so we always talk about Publication 502. Publication 502 is the IRS form that breaks down what you could write off. So, for example, let's say you're driving to a doctor's office, or you're driving to your physical therapy, or driving to the pharmacy, or you have to drive or travel out of state for a procedure. You used to be able to write off 21 cents a mile. Now it's 20.5 cents a mile. But that adds up. 20.5 cents a mile adds up. I don't know why they dropped it a half a penny. But these are things that people don't think about. If you're going to physical therapy 3 times a week, you get to write off the mileage. So how it works, according to the IRS, is if you spent over 7.5% of your adjusted gross income on unreimbursed medical expenses, because you can't write off something you got reimbursed for, like let's say the insurance covered it. 7.5% of your adjusted gross income, you may be able to deduct what you spent over this 7.5%. So let's say you made $100,000 last year. So this is the 2025 tax season. 7.5% of that would be $7,500. If you spend over $7,500, anything over that $7,500 gets to be written off. So let's say you spent $10,000 on medical expenses last year and you only make $100,000. Well, that's $2,500 over that $7,500 cutoff. Now you get to write off $2,500 of it. A lot of people don't realize, because when they add everything up, that they could qualify. And so we're not only talking about you, but also if you and your spouse, children, dependents, there could be some decent deductions. Now, Publication 502 has not been updated, it looks like, since 2024. I've been trying to find an updated one. I wrote an article on this, and it's on my Twitter. It's on my Facebook. I hyperlinked the Publication 502. Hopefully, the IRS updates it. But apparently, when you go on the IRS website, they say use the 502 that was used in 2024. So for now, I believe this is as up to date as it could be. So when you look at who you could use as a qualifying relative, apparently they list out what is a dependent, what is a qualifying relative, your son, daughter, stepchild, foster child. If you have a brother or sister or somebody living with you, father, mother. I mean, how many of you are taking care of a family member? And those expenses could be deductible. Double check with your accountant and CPA. And so when you look at those that you are supporting, and you start to add all their medical expenses, that you could be saving some money. So what can you write off? All right, I'll try to get through all of these. But apparently medical expenses that can, let's say you had any of the following. You bought any of the following. These count. So if you had an abortion, if you had acupuncture, if you were treated for alcoholism, going to AA, using transportation because you can't drive and so you have to use Uber or taxi cabs. I believe those things might be tax deductible. If you needed transportation to go to and from, not in terms of going to a party, but to and from your recovery or your doctor's offices, that can be written off. If you needed an ambulance, an annual physical that was not covered under Obamacare, if you needed an artificial limb, artificial teeth, bandages. How many times have you gone and gotten bandages and things for your first aid kit? Those count, right? Save all the receipts. Birth control pills, body scans, Braille, books and magazines, breast pumps and supplies for those of us breastfeeding. I don't breastfeed anymore, but you could have written all that off. Breast reconstruction surgery. Now, this is huge. Capital expenses. For those of us with bad knees that have had to change things in our house and put ramps in or add extra bars in the bathroom, which I think I want to do because it's hard to get off and on the toilet seat. If you make any changes that help you from a medical standpoint, you could write those off. You widen the doorways or entrances. I could use, some wider doorways. If you lower or modify kitchen cabinets, if you install railings or support bars, if you move electrical outlets and fixtures because they're all low and you need to move them higher, if you install porch lifts, if you modify your fire alarms and smoke detectors, if you modify stairways, all those things you could actually write off. It's pretty cool. Your car, if you had to change your car, not buy a new car, but if you had to make adjustments in the car because of a disability, you could write that off. If you go to a chiropractor, woohoo! Christian, my husband's a chiropractor, Christian Science practitioner, condoms. You could write off condoms. Condoms are like $1 a piece. So if your dependent is your teenage son and he's been spending $500 a month on condoms, right? You could write that off. Your contact lenses, crutches, dental treatment. There are certain dental treatments that you could write off. X-rays. You can't do teeth whitening, but your dental expenses you can. Diagnostic devices for drug addiction rehab. Eye exams, your glasses, eye surgery, but not LASIK, I don't think. Actually, I think you can. I think you can write off laser eye surgery. Fertility enhancement. A guide dog or service animal, this is huge. If you need a guide dog or a service animal to help you, anything you need to spend on that dog or animal, I believe is tax deductible. Double check with your CPA, but according to this, my dog eats hundreds of dollars a week. She's not a service animal, but it makes you think, if you use them for service, that could be pretty, obviously they have to qualify. Certain home improvements, we talked about home care, hearing aids are written off. You could write those off. Certain insurance premiums you could write off if your employer's not paying for them. Lactation expenses, certain lab fees. Let's say you have lead-based paint. You could get that removed. They even say legal fees. They say you can include in medical expenses legal fees you paid that are necessary to authorize treatment for mental illness, but you cannot include them for guardian estate fees or other things. So that's interesting. Legal fees for that. Long-term care, you could write off. Meals that have to do with your medical care, medical conferences, not medical conferences like the doctors get to go to, but let's say you are learning about your disease and your doctor wants you to go to this. You could write that off. Nursing home, nursing services, oxygen, your pregnancy tests. I don't know how many pregnancy tests I took when I was, hoping I was pregnant. Those you could write off. You could also write off your optometry appointments, your osteopathic care, organ donations, prosthesis, psychiatric care. Let's say you need one of those telephones that they're advertising. Like they advertise going, Billy, you play baseball? Yeah, what position? He's like first base. Well, there's visuals and phones that help people adapt and accommodate if they have hearing disabilities or visual disabilities. Those television. You can include in medical expenses the cost of equipment that displays the audio part of television programs as subtitles. So if you paid extra for a television that helps you with a disability, you could write that off. That's, the transportation, your bus ride, your train, your Uber costs, your ambulance, even plane fares, if it had to do with you getting medical care. So if you have to travel to UCLA or Mayo Clinic, you could write all that off. And again, also for any family member you take care of. If you drive, it's 20.5 cents a mile. That's the new change. There could be other changes, but unfortunately the website just says referred to publication 502. Stop smoking cessation programs. Those could be written off. Sterilization. If you had a vasectomy, I believe that also gets written off. Yep. Vision correction surgery, LASIK, PRK, any of those. Now, weight loss programs. There are ways to write that off. I don't know much about being able to write off the GLP-1s, but I do believe that if it's a valid medical expense, those could be written off. So for those of you going, Dr. Dahlia, there's no way I spent over 10,000 or over 7.5% of my adjusted gross income. Well, are you on the GLPs and spending $1,000 a month? You could be. So this could be huge. Now, you can't write off your diet soda. All right. And you can't write off, but if there are medical expenses that you're using for obesity, your wheelchair, wigs, x-ray, tuition. Now, when we come back, I'm going to talk about what expenses you cannot write off. Don't go away. 1-877-Doc-Dolly. Dr. Dahlia here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
We are back on the Dr. Dolly Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Doc-Dolly, 1-877-DOCDALI. So interestingly, every year this is one of the more popular segments I do because people want to save money. So we just spoke about Publication 502, how it tells you which medical tax expenses you could write off. Modifications to your home, maybe your GLP-1 prescriptions if your insurance isn't covering it, your wigs, your prostheses, your gas mileage, 20.5 cents a mile for when you have to drive to your physical therapy appointments or doctor appointments, or if you have to fly to Mayo Clinic or fly to UCLA or fly to MD Anderson or Sloan Kettering to get treatment. All of that can be tax deductible. As I said in the first segment, you would have to spend over 7.5% your adjusted gross income. So if you make $100,000 and you spend over $7,500 on medical expenses, anything over that $7,500 you can write off. And for those people who think, well, I never am going to make that, like I said, look at what you spent at the pharmacy for your GLP-1s. Look at what you spent on bandages. Look at what you spent on home modifications. All that stuff can add up. So, and not only for you, but for a relative and dependent. So if you're taking care of a relative or dependent, then all of those medical expenses also. So a lot of you will qualify. Now, what can't you write off? So according to Publication 502, you cannot write off childcare, babysitting, nursing services for a normal, healthy baby. So if your child is having issues and lactation issues, your lactation consultant, you could write off. But if the baby's fine and you're like, well, I need, some extra pads or covers, I don't believe you can write those off. If you are using medical marijuana, a lot of people ask, can I write off my medical marijuana? At this time, no. Now, this is going to be huge because for those of you going, Dr. Dahlia, I don't really spend 7.5% of my adjusted gross income, but if we could add marijuana, I spend a lot on that. I got to tell you, if the Trump administration does change the category status, the controlled substance category, let me shut the volume off here, on marijuana, you might be able to then, if it's for medical reasons, be able to write that off. And I know that marijuana could be pretty expensive. I see all of you standing outside lines I mean, spending hard-earned money on this stuff, if it's for a medical issue, it might eventually. But right now, if it's controlled substance, if it's not legal under federal law, according to Publication 502, updated in 2024, you cannot write that off. Your cosmetic surgery, and Lord knows I need a lot of that, I will not be able to write it off unless, God forbid, I get breast cancer and I need to do reconstructive, then I can. So, or if you have, let's say, a melanoma, and then you have a scar and you have to have that, that can be written off. But cosmetic surgery to, look good and that, yeah. Dancing lessons. Emmitt Smith can dance. I like watching Emmitt Smith dancing. If you take dancing lessons, you can't write those off. Your diaper service, you cannot write that off. Your hair transplant, electrolysis for hair removal, which I think I could really use, but can't write that off. Your FSAs, your HSAs, your spending accounts, that you cannot write off. I wish we could write this off, but funeral. I mean, I had to bury my father and my grandmother in the same year. It just emptied out our bank account. Unfortunately, funeral expenses, you cannot write off. And I wish they could change that because that's rough. They say future medical care, you can't include in your medical expenses something you might get next year. That makes sense. Yeah. Hair transplants, health club dues. So yeah, if you join the gym, even though you're joining the gym for your health, you cannot yet write off gym memberships. If you hire household help, they say that's a personal expense. If they are an official nurse, you might be able to. And if they're providing nursing type services, but if you're hiring a cleaning lady, technically you can't write that off. If you're doing anything illegal, no, you can't write that off. Insurance premiums, some of them are right off deductible, some aren't. Most insurance premiums, from what I'm understanding, are not, especially if you're getting Obamacare tax subsidies. So double check on that. Maternity clothes, you cannot write off. I wish I could have, because boy, that was... I had a very, very, low income. I'm making $1.15 an hour in residency. I decide to get pregnant between second and third year. I'm going to now need maternity clothes. I don't have the extra money for that, but I made it work. I just, I wore a lot of my husband's clothes, to be honest. So you cannot write off maternity clothes. If you buy your medicine from another country, you cannot write that off. If there are non-prescription drugs or medicines that you like, I don't think you could write off your Tylenol or your nutritional supplements or those things, but double check. Again, everything I tell you, double check with your accountant. Personal use items, I don't think you could write off toothpaste, toothbrushes, tampons, toilet paper. I don't believe you could write that off. Now, also, now that a lot of these things are going to start being tax-free, like tampons, diapers, tax-free, I don't think you're going to be able to write those off. Surrogacy expenses, if you have somebody else carry your baby, I don't believe you could get that written off. Swimming lessons, I think swimming lessons are healthy, but you can't write those off. Just like dancing lessons. Your teeth whitening, which I could use, can't write off your teeth whitening. Your veterinary fees. If your animal's a service animal, you can. But if your animal's not a service animal, you cannot write off their medical expenses. But if it's a guide dog or other service animal, you can. And then certain weight loss programs, you can't. So I think if you join Weight Watchers, I don't think you could write that off. But double check, because some weight loss is covered. So I have to have somebody help me with my taxes. I just do. When you work in as many different industries as I do, I just want to make sure I'm doing everything right. I know I could go online and fill out the forms, but if you do your own taxes, Publication 502, read that, make sure you understand it. If not, talk to a tax professional, because I'm not a tax professional. I'm just here to remind you that a lot of the things you spend money on medically, you could write off, but then there's other things that you might not be able to write off. They're like, let's say I really am getting frustrated with upper lip hair and I want to get electrolysis or I want to get something done with that. I can't write it off. However, if you have, let's say, folliculitis barbae, or if you have, let's say, beard folliculitis, and you end up getting dermatological treatments for that you could write off. So it's interesting. I feel like that Friends show where Ross is teaching Chandler what you could steal from a hotel room. You can't steal salt and pepper shakers, but you could take as much of the salt, because they're reusable. Just like shampoo. You could take the shampoo, but, you can't steal the towels. So whatever is designed to be used, you could use. This is a little different. But many of you are buying crutches for the house or buying a wheelchair for your mom, or you're moving the cabinets, or you're adding rails in the bathroom. One thing I want to get is like a toilet seat that's a little higher, because in the middle of the night, my knees do not like, I'm blown away at how I got to hold on to the wall in the middle of the night. During the day, I'm fine. But when I'm stiff in the middle of the night, I can't get off and on the toilet seat. So I want to have some rails or do a toilet seat lift or something like that. You could write that stuff off. So look, as you're doing your taxes, look at everything you've spent money on. Don't forget the mileage. The 20.5 cents a mile is huge. And for those of you say, Dr. Dahlia, I couldn't write all this down. This is why I publish my article every year on this. I hyperlink the publication 502. Go to Twitter, go to my Facebook. You'll be able to see the article, and then you'll be able to run this by your tax specialist. Because again, I'm no expert in taxes. In fact, one of my sons is going into accounting, which I'm really, really excited about, because then I'll be able to, bounce things off of him. He's really smart too. So, but then I'm going to have to say, can I write this off? Or I want to get cosmetic surgery. No, Mom, I don't want to hear. Now, let me tell you about what I want to do. I really need, I don't want to hear it, Mom. 1-877-Doc-Dolly, don't go away. Hi guys, Dr. Dahlia here. Addictions can sneak up on us and come in many forms. Whether it's drugs, alcohol, sex, video games, porn, or something less obvious such as food, internet, or shopping, addiction can seem innocent at first and then evolve into an insurmountable evil. In our book, Addiction Basics, Caitlin Kalikas and I dive into the common addictions and provide tips for identifying and preventing these before they sneak in and take over our lives. Addiction Basics can be found on Amazon or my website, drdahlia.com. Check it out.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
Hey guys, it's Clyde. We've had a lot of requests for Ground Zero merchandise, so we put together an online store with a big variety of high-quality items. I'm really excited to let you know about these things. We have a lot to offer you and your loved ones. In addition to our regular apparel, such as t-shirts, beanies, hoodies, and hats, we've expanded our product line with posters, flags, aprons, mugs, and a whole lot more. We also have Ground Zero collectibles, along with a limited edition of items like a Clyde Lewis canvas portrait, a Ground Zero embroidered jacket that will certainly make for great gifts and for interesting conversations with family and friends. And we now offer publications such as Ron Patton's book about mind control, MK Zine, and back copies of the official magazine of Ground Zero while it was in print. Paranoia, the Conspiracy Reader, also coming in 2023, are updated and revised books that I've written. There's a secure and easy-to-use shopping cart for your purchases. So shop today at our official store by going to groundzeromerch.com. Again, that's groundzeromerch.com.
We are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. 1-877-DOCDALI. So I was horrified to watch the videos of people in church this weekend in Minnesota and St. Paul when anti-ICE protesters started disrupting the services and shouting at people who were there in prayer. Now, I was just at a funeral at a church, and it was a beautiful funeral. And it was, we were crying. I couldn't imagine what we would do if we're trying to be there to honor God, honor, the loss of our friend's daughter. And then people come in chanting and yelling at us for not being a part of an anti-ICE protest. And that's what happened. There was about, 30, 40 people went inside City's church, maybe more, City's church in Minneapolis, and shouted down, according to Fox News, those en masse for not participating in anti-ICE demonstrations. One protester was screaming, "Where are your people? Why are you not fighting for humanity?" And then you heard ICE out, justice for Renee Good, and church people are just trying to, pray. Dr. Joe Rigney, a former pastor of City's church, said the church isn't political. He said it's remarkable to see that sort of thing. He said to watch people disrupt, frighten children, harass churchgoers who are simply trying to worship God. Instead of going on a normal Sunday, they have loud, angry, vile people screaming and chanting at them. And so, I'm looking at this as, if you are wanting to peacefully assemble or peacefully protest, okay, protesting per se isn't what the Constitution says. You could peaceful assembly, and it could be, in a protest, but you're not supposed to. There's no constitutional protection for mayhem, for interrupting. In fact, I think it's criminal to interrupt, to harass people trying to pray and trying to, be a part of their religion and worship. And I believe that is illegal, what they did. But again, I'm no criminal expert. But like Target, I believe ICE protesters occupied a Target, a Minnesota Target. And they did a sit-in because they claimed that Target was helping ICE agents by letting them use their bathroom and using, I guess, their parking lots. So one of the protesters said ICE is serving, or Target is serving as a staging ground for ICE. Now, this is frightening because if you're doing peaceful protest because you want to help the lives of innocent, illegal immigrants, or criminals that come to this country, or non-criminals that come to this country, you would think your approach would be pretty consistent and say, look, we don't want to hurt anybody. We don't want to, we want, to protect people's rights. Okay, well, if you want to protect people's rights, why are you trampling on other people's rights? I mean, why are you, I know people are mad and they want to act out, but why are you throwing things at an ICE agent? They're there to do the job to protect you and to get criminals out. And so why are you trampling on their rights if your whole purpose is, it's about people's rights and, we want people to be able to live peacefully, in this neighborhood. Well, you're not bringing peace into the neighborhood. Target is usually an anchor in large shopping centers. And you're blaming Target for having a parking lot and people using the parking lot. How many times have you used a Target, parking lot and parked your car? I think I trained one of my kids to drive in a Target parking lot. And if we have to pee, we go out to pee. Usually we buy something, but still. But you see, people are looking at it and they ask me, how do I feel about all the anti-Semitism that I'm seeing? There's always been anti-Semitism. Like, sadly, there's always been racism. It's just people have been quiet about it. And they haven't been vocal. And now, all of a sudden, it's a popular thing to do, to be anti-Jewish and be anti-Israel. And for those individuals to say, okay, well, they're only going after the Jews, I'm safe. No. There's no respect of the churches. There's no respect for anybody of faith. Which means if Jews could be behind the 8 ball and a target, so can non-Jews. Individuals with hate will target anybody. This is why I'm so grateful for my Christian and Catholic and Muslim brothers and sisters who stand up to hatred and discrimination. Because if somebody hates a Jew, they're also going to hate somebody who's black or hate somebody who's Latino or hate somebody who's Catholic or Christian. Don't just think the hate will only be about one person. Did Hitler just kill Jews? No. He also killed Christians. He also killed Catholics. He killed people of the LGBTQIA plus community. He killed gypsies. If you had 1/8, if you had a drop of Jewish blood and you were Catholic, you got killed. The hate has no boundaries. It's not. It's unfortunate. It's really unfortunate. And so I'm watching these riots, and I'm watching these. Peaceful assembly is a valuable tool, and Martin Luther King showed us how you could do it. And may he rest in peace. Fighting for causes he believed in. And he even said, the silence is deafening. You could do a lot, but you could do more. Once you start to bring in this chaos, you lose a lot of the value of what you're doing and a lot of the credibility. And so I believe these protesters now, they're starting to look like whack jobs. And well, they've looked like whack jobs for a while. I mean, protesting things, are people having vaginas? Why are they wearing vaginas on their head? I don't understand that. There's these vagina masks and hoodies, and I don't understand that. Are you doing that because you're protecting girls in sports and people from looking at their vaginas if they're biological males? I mean, what's that for? No, I guess it has to do about ICE. I don't get that. And so you're trampling on other people's rights, and any individual that does disrupt a church, there should be criminal consequences for that. I remember during the Black Lives Matter protest, there were students saying, look, what if I was caught on camera? Is that going to affect me going to medical school? And I go, if you're doing peaceful assembly, you're fine. But if you look like you were breaking the law, yeah, that could probably affect you. I mean, there has to be consequences for breaking the law. And when you have Jacob Fry and Governor Walz saying, well, we want people safe, ICE is causing there to be lack of safety, lack of, look at people getting hurt. Well, then move the protesters to a peaceful area, move the protesters to an area, and ensure that they're doing peaceful assembly. But if you're telling them to riot and you're egging them on and calling ICE Nazis, I thought it was pretty Nazi-ish when people are trying to pray and you invaded a church, making them feel like if they don't join you, they're against you. Come on. And that's subversion. That's fascism. We're going to make your lives hell. And we're going to make you uncomfortable because if you're not taking part, the idea of, look, I don't want to be involved in politics. I want to stay neutral. Remember, I was told as a kid, you never talk politics, you never talk religion, because it always, can start arguments, etc. Just, if you're neutral, no, nobody allows neutrality. If you aren't with us, you're against us. And you're an enemy if you're just trying to get through your life apolitically. And that has to stop. And that's where this country is going. People don't want, now the majority do want peace, but these fringe fanatics don't want that. They want there to be war. Because that's what they thrive on. They got nothing better to do, and they feel it'll help their cause. It's got to stop. 1-877 Doc Dolly, don't go away.
At Hot Shot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems and their solutions. For example,
diesel fuel cetane levels.
In many states, the cetane rating in diesel fuel is 42 to 45. Most diesel engines operate more efficiently with a cetane rating of 48 to 50. One treatment of Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme will raise your cetane 7 points, increase fuel economy, and improve cold starts. Due to a cleaner burn, there are less hydrocarbons and particulate matter in your exhaust. This reduces the blockage of your diesel particulate filter. Using Diesel Extreme generates 83% less DPF regeneration. The 6-in-1 Diesel Extreme formula also includes the most concentrated detergent on the market, lubricity enhancer, water demulsifier, rust and corrosion inhibitors, and a fuel stabilizer.
Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, fine farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.